Oh my god. Hey guys, how are you doing? I just got a webcam for my birthday. I don't know, I'm not used to being... I mean, I guess I am used to being on camera, but not on the spot, not as just me, myself. So today I wanted to try out a little vlog on a particular topic, and we're gonna see if it spins off into something regular. I figured it would be a great way to have some intermittent content in between the bigger videos I'm working on. Always working on something. So today's topic is DS Piracy Regret. Or Redemption? I think it's Redemption. DS Piracy Redemption. So, many of you might know what an R4 or a multi or a flash card is. I've got one right here. This is an R4. Oops. I hope Nintendo doesn't monetize this video, by the way, because then they'll be making money off the R4, which is what they should have done in the first place, right? Anyway, when I was in high school, the DS had just come out, and I bought it at launch. I bought a few of the games. The few games they had out were like Super Mario 64 DS, Feel the Magic, and Sprung, which was kind of like this PictoChat dating simulator. And then it had like a period of about a year of a drought of games, and games were kind of expensive. There was also the PSP around the corner. They had the PS2 was still in its heyday, the Xbox original, and then the PS3 and 360 were looming over in the distance. One of the biggest things about the Nintendo DS is that it had a humongous library of games. And there's just no way you'd be able to test them out because they didn't have demos like they have for the 3DS shop. And I'm not justifying it, but I had an R4, and I would basically play any game that was interesting to me. And if it was interesting enough, I'd go out and buy it. Well, I got comfortable with using the R4, and it was far more convenient to find a ROM for a game than it was to go out and pay 40 bucks or so for one of the DS carts. I had started off, I'd say probably the first 2 or 3 years of the DS, I was legit. I bought a ton of games, and then they started releasing the R4s, and there were so many subsequent versions of them. There were spin-offs, there was like M3, and all these other things. And I figured, yeah, this is far more convenient just to download a ROM and throw it in an R4, so that's what I did. And now that I'm older and I have more disposable income, and I'm a collector of all sorts of games, I felt kind of bad for my years of piracy. However, I don't want to go and re-buy those games digitally on the eShop, and some of them are coming out on the Wii U. I know a few of them are, like Yoshi and a couple of Castlevania games. So I have been on the hunt for DS games non-stop. I've been buying all the games that I loved playing back before. You know, this one in particular, one of my favorites, Trace Memory. And Retro Game Challenge, really hard to find now, but I'd say for the past year or so, this one's a reprint. If you couldn't tell, I made that custom. Same goes for this one. I've been going out and buying DS games because A, they're fairly cheap nowadays. You can get most of the DS games in the library for 20 bucks or under, which is always a good thing. But some of these, like this one in particular, I got for $1. It just depends on where you look, but since the DS was one of the most popular, I guess it was the most popular handheld of all time if you're not including the Game Boy and the Game Boy Color and Pocket and all those variations, but I know that the DS was owned mostly by kids, so kids they see the box, whatever, give me the game, and they put spaghetti sauce on it, like this one belonged to a kid named Dallas. I know they threw away most of the boxes, and GameStop also had a habit of making shelf space, so one way they would do that is by throwing out the boxes and instructions. So, in doing so, they've created their own collector's market. So now trying to find a game complete in box, it's steadily increasing. Like, I know, like, Front Mission on the DS is around $100. This Atelier game I bought for my girlfriend was $75 just loose. So yeah, the market has now turned into this big collector scene. And when I looked back at it, I remember that I mean, if we're counting the Phoenix Wright series and all the different Mario RPG games, like, I spent a ton of time on my DS. And all the games that I played were, I mean, there is a lot of shovelware just like the Wii, but for the most part, I loved almost every game I owned for the DS. There were very few bad apples. And I have the R4 to thank for that, because I discovered titles I never knew I wanted to play. There was at least 2 Suda51 games on the DS, one of which is Flower, Sun, and Rain, that I ordered for my birthday. I've always wanted to play that. It's kind of like a visual novel adventure, but it came out on the PS2 in Japan first, and then they released it over here for the DS. So I'm checking that out. Of course, I mentioned Trace Memory, Hotel Dusk, and there was another game I just discovered. It's called Again. It's also made by Sing. Really got me into the visual novel genre. I mean, I love Danganronpa 1 and 2 and Ultra Despair Girls, but it was Trace Memory and Hotel Dusk and Phoenix Wright that got me into the genre. So the DS just ended up being like, it got me to play more Game Boy Advance games, more DS games, and it was just so ahead of its time. I got it here with me. This is my DSi XL. This is such a beautiful system. Now, many people don't like the DSi because it's missing the Game Boy Advance, but that's fine by me. I still have my DS Lite, I still have my Game Boy Advance, and my GameCube player. But this just feels like, you know, you can sit down and, like, especially if you're playing Hotel Dusk, it's like a big book. It's very good build quality. The battery life lasts at least 15 hours. Currently on this, I'm playing Contact, which is another Suda51 game. I just got into it. Reminds me a lot of Secret of Evermore. And it has some, you know, Suda. Everyone's like, it's like Earthbound. It's like, yeah, I can see some influences from Earthbound, but it reminds me more of like Secret of Mana and Secret Evermore, personally. But everything I've played on the DS has, it felt fresh, like it was for the first time. Because it's like the first of its kind. It was like the first big touchscreen gaming system. And this one had all sorts of cool features. So I was recently playing through Trace Memory. It used the mic, it used the touchscreen. You even had to close the lid to solve one of the puzzles. It was very creative for its time. And then other games started using these cameras here. So they have a front-facing and an inner camera. And although they aren't the best quality, they were implemented in Art Academy and WarioWare DIY. So you could like trace objects or put your face in the game, kind of like the old Game Boy camera. So as I said, like, I've been collecting for the DS. It's just something that I've always loved, but I've never went out and bought games for. So I would say the DS and the Wii and maybe the PS2, those are going to become the new big collector's items if they aren't already. I mean, I collected in the NES a bunch 5 years ago, and 5 years ago it was still kind of niche. Now finding any NES game for under, you know, fair market value is almost impossible. So many resellers out there. But I just don't think there's as many resellers out there for the DS. So what do you guys think? What kind of DS games do you like? Which ones should I go out there and try? Or maybe you're a collector out there. What's something I should be looking out for? Recently I picked up Okamiden and I got some bonus stuff for that, so maybe I'll show that off one day. Alright, I think I've rambled long enough here. If you like this sort of vlog style topic, suggest it. If you think I'm a total idiot, that's okay too. Welcome to the new series. welcome to the channel.